Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm GMB Kamichek. I am here with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, known the world over as Chasing Artwork. We just took a long elevator ride together, gentlemen. Dan Vadeboncoeur is looking at me, raising his eyebrows. He's our producer extraordinaire.
It's always kind of a crapshoot in that elevator, I feel.
Yeah, that's elevator is definitely you're taking not your life in your hands, but your life for the next few hours is always a nebulous experience.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Building is, if it's not 100 years old, it's got to be awfully close.
It's got to be at least 110 years old.
Yeah, at least, yeah. And that elevator actually recently gouged me so bad that I thought I might also need stitches. Like it bit the door.
Yeah, you know how elevator doors normally have like infrared sensors or something, so when something like comes in between it when it's closing, it'll stop. This elevator, no such technological wonder.
It has a bumper.
It has a bumper from the 30s that doesn't care about your soft skin.
Yeah, so it slams into you doing about 25 kilometers an hour and then goes ka-donk and then opens, but just for a second before it immediately tries again.
Like if you don't have a wide footing, you're getting knocked over.
And I know this has nothing to do with what we normally talk about, which is how we write and illustrate books and comics, but I will say this about our elevator also. I've noticed you can tell who's worked here for a while, who's coming from the coffee place, because they know better than to step into the threshold of the elevator holding a hot coffee without firmly holding the door open button at the same time. And then every now and then a poor, inexperienced...
It's usually a young family getting baby pictures on the third floor of our building. I think there's like infant photography, so it's always some new family who just assumes the elevator isn't a monster.
Yeah. And I made a joke the other day that you have to be careful, the elevator bites, and then it slammed into someone, and I tried to hold it open for them, and it cut me real bad. And so it turned out the person that bites the most is me. So if I bleed enough into it, it'll become a family relation. That's how I think about the elevator, and then it'll have my back.
You know what also bites? Feedback sometimes.
Oh, good segue.
Thanks, Gregory.
One of the things we talked about in the elevator ride was how, I'll say this, Dan, as a delightful member of the human race who cares about others, he asked me how things were going, and he seemed to actually want the answer, and I gave him the trite, everything's great. And then I paused and I realized, no, human connection is made of more than this. And I said, no, my brain is a pile of angry squirrels right now because I've been wrestling with the fact that my new book, which is I'm 2/3 of the way finished, sucks. And I'm trying to fix it.
Which part of it sucks? Like, is it the ending isn't good, the middle isn't good? Is it just like overall there's some...
Well, for me, how I feel is that everything that I was building up to in this piece of story it doesn't pay off, and when it does pay off, it's confusing. And if I have to stop to explain why this part's cool, it isn't cool, right? Like, it's just, there's a whole bunch of stuff. And it's a genre story. It's the next piece of our shared world collection, so it's my one slant story. So we'll include 2 finished... polished, I think they're quite excellent stories that I worked on with James Gillespie, and then the follow-up to those and a few other little pieces will all be in the new collection called One Slants. And so we're coming up on publication readiness time here at the studio, and so it's time to roll up my sleeves and polish it all off and get the draft finished. And as I was working on it, I realized it's not very good.
So
Go ahead.
This isn't like feedback coming from somebody else. This is just you coming at the project from fresh eyes and realizing the glaring issues.
I want to know what made you realize
what precipitated it. Okay, so James Gillespie and I work on these one slant stories together, in so much as we usually co-plot them, and then I go away and write kind of a jangly draft of it think of like a pile of coat hangers that loosely fits together that you've crumpled into a ball. It like makes a shape, but it's not really good for anything.
Okay.
And then he will come in and look at that draft and make notes like, oh, what if we flesh out this? Ooh, I like this description of this city. What if it's like this or this? Or what could we make a link of, to a plot of this other story? Could we hint at it here? And so he puts in more plotting related notes and
He can look at it a little more analytical.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've done it enough that I think the feeling I get is that he recognizes, okay, these are toys in the toy box, and you're just arranging them in various ways for the diorama, and we may move it around, but let's make each individual pieces as complete as possible. And so then the next draft is sort of doing that.
Just that right there, just in my mind, going back to like playing toys with my cousin, and all I want to do is be creative, and he's the one who's trying to like, well, that doesn't make sense, so let's dial it back. And like, why would that guy attack that guy? But no, he just does. It's just cool. just go with it. It's fine.
That's right. So this is exactly us inside the draft of this story. And there's also this one part, and we've talked before about how I sometimes see the muse as not a thing that arrives with this magical version of the story, but it's sort of a false confidence. The muse stands in the corner and says, you have something worth saying, you have something worth sharing, your ideas are great, and gosh darn it, people like you. Just keep going.
So is there evil sister, that imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think so. I think, aunt imposter syndrome comes over. But during this drafting process, every now and then, James will put in things that say, he'll just highlight a whole section that I've written in, and it'll just have a question mark. Or it will say, like, I don't know what this has to do with anything. Or is this connected to some other part of the story? And since it's a draft and it's just those sort of pieces, those toys at random, that's sometimes how I'm writing. I have an idea. Oh, this is somebody's backstory or history.
And you've learned not to take that personal at this point.
100%.
Yeah.
So, like, there's no problem. But what this does later, it just allows me to then go through and clarify those parts. So when the muse is whispering in my ear and I see a note from James that says, this makes no sense, the muse whispers in my ear and I say it out loud to myself, oh, but it's okay. It's all going to fit together. You don't yet understand my genius. You can't be inside my head. You can't see the patterns that I can see. It'll be fine. Once I revise the draft, it'll become clearer and clearer. And now this is sort of like a fourth, fifth draft kind of stage, and he still had those things are still pretty much like, what the hell does this mean? And I kept sort of lying to myself, listening to the muse and lying to myself that it would all sort itself out by the time I got to the end.
Well, now it's at the end.
And now
it hasn't sorted itself out.
The muse was lying to you.
Yeah, whispering in my ear. And so now, what did you call her? Imposter syndrome, has arrived, but also a little smidgen of self-doubt and a little
kernel of you're not good enough.
A little kernel of you're not good enough, and also what was all that time for? And are you wasting James's time and the team's time and the whole thing? It's all starting to pile up, and so
is there nothing salvageable from this though? Are you going to trash the whole thing and start over?
No.
Okay, good, because you shouldn't do that. I don't think that self-doubt it will cause you to think things are worse than they are, right? So it's probably not as bad as you're making it out.
So here is what I did, and to speak exactly that, this is not the first time I've been in this position with a story or a book or a draft or a something, and so now I know enough to know that when the squirrels are running around in my head and just fighting with each other, and each of these squirrels, if we're going to mix these metaphors, is like the different idea that's fighting for which one is going to have your attention and survive. Little red squirrels are very territorial. Only one.
And the ideas are like they're nuts?
Their ideas are like they're nuts. Yeah, something like
the
that.
nuts.
Anyway, so when my mind is full of squirrels, instead of sticking to the writing schedule, and all week I've been doing 3-hour sprints of writing and working and polishing, I took that time and I went for a walk instead. And I just told myself the story. What parts I could remember, I just told myself the story, and everything that didn't fit, of course I can't remember, right? Because it doesn't fit the pattern in your own mind of the story. So as I went for a walk, I walked from home to the studio, and I took my sweet time doing it this morning, And I just like trundled along and just kept telling myself the story and realizing that as I'm fitting all the pieces of the story together, the parts that don't fit together, I just have to cut. They just have to go away. And if I am not holding any space at all for, well, where does that fit? Now I know what I need to rewrite. So now, tomorrow morning, when I sit down for those 3 hours, it will be cutting every piece that I now know for sure is just slowing down the narrative, is just a little bit of self-indulgent, a little bit of overwriting, a little bit of nonsense.
And I think that's a big part of like any story is when you start out, it's if you think of what's a good comparison, like maybe like a tree, right? You're just branching off in all directions.
Right. Keeping with the squirrel analogy.
Yeah, keeping with
It's in the backyard, Charlie.
I don't know if this is good or bad, but
Who are those creatures? What are they?
Well, how many were there?
Well, 2, 3, maybe 4. I don't know. What in God's name was...
Control yourself, Mr. Braddock.
I think it's fun to like, especially when you don't know where the story is going and how this is going to like, you don't know what that end shape is going to be. You kind of like you go off in all these different directions, and every version you're like an arbiter, right? You're getting it more and more into the shape of the tree you want it to be.
right.
And you can't have this one branch that's just way off to the left and weighing the whole thing down that doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
Right? So I think it's important to explore all those because you have
You're
to.
reaching for the sun. If the sun is the muse in this example, you're just putting the branches out.
We're
collect as
terrible
much
with metaphors
we
in
have
this show, but
Let's call this episode Too Many Metaphors in the
that's
Elevator.
most of our episodes.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
true. It's true.
But yeah, I think like you need to explore those avenues to find out that they're dead branches, right? Like if you didn't try that out, I think you wouldn't be as strong of an author or creative. Like if you don't try that crazy idea, because sometimes those are the best ideas. Like that thing that like, maybe we'll try this, and then it ends up connecting with everything else in your story so well, and that becomes like the main beam of your foundation of your story.
Yeah, definitely true. I also think that with this story, I'm trying something more complicated than I normally try, and
You're growing.
well, I'm going to.
So you shouldn't laugh that hard.
Yeah, if you want to know what hurts me, it's when Dan laughs at the notion that I could become more. But that's what I'm trying to do is I'm trying something that I haven't done before, and how it works, just for the dear listener's sake. The story is structured as an oral history, one character telling these events to another. And while they're telling the events, since they are, in effect, oral historians, they are each telling other stories to illustrate points within the story. So the story goes down a level and then down a level into different stories and traditions of the culture of the story. And the punchline that I'm trying to make in this whole Once Lands collection, the sort of theme I'm trying to get at, is that if you were to take a big stone and shatter it, the edges would be sharp, but you could kind of fit it back together into something that was recognizable. It'd be much harder to carry it around. If those same stones lasted a long time, like in a river, tumbling around, all those sharp edges would get smooth, and you wouldn't be able to fit them together, but you might be able to tell they were from the same place. And in this story structure, in these Once Lands stories, they're about how the stories a culture tells are these rounded stones. They don't really fit together. If you try to explore them too literally, they don't make a cohesive whole.
Because they've been distilled down and told too many times, and they've become something far removed from their original shape.
Exactly. And so this main character in the story is realizing this for the first time, that essentially the traditions of his culture could be seen as lies, right? That it's just, we polished off these things, and all of these series of events that I say, like this one character is like telling the story as if all these things happened at the same time and they had the same moment that started them and the same reason why they're all happening. But as he goes and explores the actual events himself, walks the ground where they took place, it couldn't possibly be true. Right? And so trying to fit all that stuff together in a way that isn't so freaking preachy, frankly. It's supposed to have monsters and some high action and a little bit of horror elements in it also. So trying to do a bunch of stuff all at the same time, and now it just feels like a mess, and I have to cut away.
So he's kind of like a historian of a book he loves, and so he's retreading like the path of the hobbits from Hobbiton to like Mount Doom, and it's not quite the way it was laid out in the books.
That's right. Yeah, he goes on this, at one point in the story. So, I mean, as long as we're digging into it, the main character of our story doesn't seem to be the main character at first. He is being tested. There's an old woman that's asking him, tell me the story of these people. This is your first, like it's an initiation. And so he tells these two legends of these powerful sort of cultural heroes, and establishes the truth in the story, points to specific things like, that statue that we think looks like a man is actually this person's preserved body, right? And the story sort of leads to this place. This thing where we used to live in this other area and now we live here, this is the reason. So there's a lot of origin stories for how those things take place. But the more he's telling the stories in relation to the places he's gone, the more the reader starts to realize, at least this is what I hope, that they don't correlate. Like, this doesn't come before that, and that is not where this was, and this isn't the place where that could have taken. It doesn't make sense. These people are a generation apart. How could they have been contemporaries? Like this, the story that the one person is telling him and the thing that he's going and finding the evidence for, they don't match. But instead of making it like a boring essay of history, you're trying to infuse it with monsters and action and giant slug creatures.
Yeah, what you're describing to me, like the process of getting this feedback and changing and cutting stuff, it sounds a lot like editing process of a film, like when they cut like entire scenes, entire storylines. You have to like just kind of weave your way through it and just cut out these details. You might like have to take a couple passes at it.
Yeah, and I've been taking passes. Yeah. It's been getting shorter and shorter each time I do it.
So is that a concern that you might cut down on the length of the story, or are you going to add more story to make up for it?
I have enough time that I can add some more if necessary, but I think I'd rather have less that's good than more just to fill some arbitrary
no
notion.
Word count or something you're trying to get to?
No.
So, okay.
I mean, this is different for us because this is a studio-led project. It's out through Stranger Fiction, but this is all people we're intimately connected with, and
so you don't have a publisher saying like you have 30,000 words and anything over that is
that's right.
No go.
We get to set that, and because I also have a number of illustrations and map elements and things like that I've generated in and around the Once Lands that have not seen print anywhere. If I feel like the total value of the manuscript is lessened, I have lots of cool stuff that I can pile into it to make up for a word count loss. So I'm not overly concerned with like giving the dear reader something cool. I just for myself am like, oh no, I'm losing my book. Mayday, right?
Okay, good. So you're well in hand. You're feeling okay about it?
No.
Okay.
Turmoil.
We'll check in.
You have reached me at the point where I am currently unsure that I can stick the landing.
Oh,
maybe it's good
I'm
that
confident. I think you can do it.
You got to say that out loud and talk about it, because usually you just have to kind of stew in that and then.
And it's actually, I don't know, this is, I think, a first for us here to, like, go on the record of being like, we're not good enough. Usually we're just pumping each other's tires.
I don't usually talk about that kind of... I always get the feeling you're extremely confident in everything you put out, and you've never had a doubt in your mind about it.
No. Not at all.
No.
This constantly doubts, but you have to put it out anyway. I think what I've gotten into what we all do here is time's up.
Yeah.
So now put it out. And take your lumps. And if those lumps are because you didn't do a good job, please apply that to the next time. But don't not do it. Don't not finish. Don't not show it.
And I think it's like something that I find like a little bit comforting is with like books or paintings, posters, whatever I do. Not everyone is going to land, right? Like of 10 paintings that I do, 2 nobody's going to care about. Right? Nobody's going to look at twice. Nobody's going to like. And I won't know that until I put them out.
Yeah. 2
of those are going to be like sell really well and light the internet on fire and whatever. And again, I have no idea why or when or how.
And
but
6
that's
of
just
them will be meh. They'll be kind of get
little
there.
bit in the middle.
Yeah.
And same with books too, right? Like I don't think anybody's first book is going to be their greatest book, but your 3rd one maybe, or your 7th maybe, or your 14th. maybe. You know, like it's not
well,
like
there's a difference between good and favorite also.
Yeah.
So you can have a body of work and people pick the parts they like best. And no matter how hard you worked on the new thing, they'll say, oh, I wish you'd do another X, you know? So there's just no way to know. You just have to do it.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
And maybe, like, you don't know. Like, this might turn out to be, like, everybody's favorite book. Or it might turn out to be the one that, like, yeah, people read, it's fine, but whatever. And then your next one is going to be that great one, right? I think that's just part of it. Like, name one of your favorite directors. They have movies that you absolutely love. And they probably also have movies that, like, yeah, you don't need to see that twice, you know? It's just part of the journey.
What in the name of God are you doing here?
Don't worry, Braddock. You'll get over it just like I did.
And any of those creative projects in any medium that you love, the more you learn about how it came together, the less you want to know.
It's fair.
Right?
Yeah, sometimes, right?
About how the...
You don't want to see how the sauce... You really don't want to see how the sausage is made, right?
You don't want to watch it grind. No.
Sometimes that is neat to see, but then now that you've seen it, it's like the actual... like, if you see 4 hours of behind the scenes of, like, Aliens 2... Can you really watch that movie with the same magic anymore now that you know exactly what's happening on either side of the frames, what's going into, like, the shots? Like,
Aliens, perhaps, yes. I like it more now because I know that. Because it's like, oh, look, everyone almost died right there when that flamethrower actually set fire to the set. Oh, that big slab of pig iron nearly killed Sigourney Weaver. And, you know, Apone saved the day because he's an actual non-vet. You know, these kinds of things. I do like that movie for that. Okay. It does remind me, though, that anything made in the 80s was a death trap for cast and crew. And there are some great standards and practices that have definitely, when people talk about, like, oh, movies aren't like they used to be, it's true. But they're also not as dangerous for the people who were working on them as they used to be. Mm-hmm. So I think that's good, too. Yeah. You want them to be in more danger? Mortal danger is your...
Rose-colored glasses looking at, like, the 80s monster movies.
Rose-colored because there's the blood of the extra that was struck,
exactly.
cut by the elevator.
Yeah. You got some feedback as well on Spark Chasers.
Yeah, okay, so we can talk about that. So Spark Chasers is my next graphic novel. It's, again, like you were saying, Gregory, it's a much bigger, more complicated project than usual. I've done 12 books at this point. And most of them are relatively silent, relatively few characters, and I often compare them to, like, Pixar shorts. Like, the visuals do the heavy lifting. There's little words. It's more almost visual storytelling, more so than traditional comics and graphic novels. And with Spark Chasers, it is lots of dialogue, lots of characters, like a more complex plot with multiple characters with different motivations, blah, blah, blah. So it's a much bigger project storytelling-wise than I've had before. And I have written the script probably, I want to say, like 6 or 7 times. I've storyboarded it out like at least 3 or 4 times now. And this last November, December, January, February, all I did was do that final storyboard and that final scripting, and I sent that off to my agent, and then I haven't looked at it since February 1st. And I did that on purpose because I was doing like 12, 16-hour days on this book project, and I was in it, and I was loving it. I was having a lot of fun, but it was a lot of these characters in this world, and so I thought it was going to be really good for me to have a break. And so now we're at the end of that break where the agent has sent back changes, and right now at the printers, I have printed out that final storyboard from February, and I'm going to pick that up today. And so I haven't looked at any of the agent's changes because I want to go through with fresh eyes and read it myself and make changes on my own and make notes about what I want to fix and what I think could be better, what's not landing, what is.
And then compare the two.
Well, and then when I go into, because I'm always aware that when I get changes or critiques, right, like my hackles go up a little bit too. It's just part of it's human nature, right? Like,
how dare you question my genius?
But what I'm hoping is by the time I get to the agent's changes, I'll have already addressed those things on my own. I'll have caught them first. I'll have thought of ways to fix them, or I'll agree like yes, or no, and I'll have a reason for the no's. So that's kind of where I'm at with that project.
And you had studio pal Samantha Biko also kick around, do some substantive edits.
We're not yet, no. So we're going to be meeting up to go over that as well. Yeah. Or even I need to re-listen to, I did a full pitch at the studio. I sat a whole bunch of people down and ran through the entire book over 2 days, 2 long days.
It was great.
And I got feedback from you guys and stuff like that. So we
had some interns in, we had, a bunch of friends of the studio.
Scott
and Justin,
Hendricks.
and Justin pitched it, put it on the, big screen TV, set it up on the boardroom. I think he even wore a suit jacket. He was
Dragons, have I got a deal for you?
That's right. It was great. But the context of listen to me so I can pitch it means that you have to organize your thoughts well enough to explain it to a group, and that is so valuable. So valuable. At least it was cool to watch you suffer.
So I have all these things to go over, and then I'm hoping that kind of galvanizes it into an almost final version. I know there's still going to be changes, and I know a lot of changes happen as I make the final artwork, right? Like it's all kind of a little blurry right now, but as the final artwork starts to come together, that's when I find a lot of my best storytelling really happens, in the making of those final pages. I don't know. And most times I go into graphic novels with a looser script and allow that storytelling with the visuals to kind of happen naturally, leave that vagueness there on purpose, because I know as the final artwork comes together, that's when I know I want to explore this a bit more, have this in there, blah 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 blah.
So we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how I hacked my own brain in preparation for this moment in a book draft where everything looks dire. I had completed all 10 pages of my Dire Beast submission, and I had one tiny piece of lettering and one little bit of handmade title treatment that I had done that I had not yet cemented into the artwork to export the PDFs. And I purposely did not. I could have done it 2 weeks ago, but I purposely didn't, because I knew that there would be a moment where up ahead I would be really dejected, and I had this long piece of it's going to be grim in this moment. And so I'm going to save, knowing that I'm done that project, the final moment of it, until I feel like I really need it. And so that was today. I got here after I did my walk, and I was like, okay, I've got it figured out. I know I got to cut a bunch of stuff. Now I'm going to search for that wonderful sense of false accomplishment that I need, and I'm going to embed these two things into the PDF and upload it into our folder, and my Dire Beast contributions are finished. I'm such a wonderful and amazing individual again.
But I think it's important to have, I do that with the back of the book. If I'm stuck on a point of the story, I'll go to the back of the book where it's the how the book was made sections. They're kind of easy picking stuff that like you said, you feel accomplished by doing, or really hone in on just one particular element of the story. I'm just working on this page today. I don't know what happens next, but I'm just going to nail this page. And I often find that I really feel lucky that we have that opportunity to do that with our work schedule, and because we're kind of our own bosses. Because if you were working for somebody, they wouldn't let you jump onto that project.
Absolutely.
You're going to work on this project until it's done.
It's finished.
Yeah. Stew in it.
Yeah, and there's something to be said for that. I think people being held to the fire, can accomplish great works. And one of the things that is set is that there is a print deadline for the Once Lands collection, and we have a launch planned in and around the Winnipeg Comic-Con. And so there are certain immutable deadlines that do create a sense of urgency that I find absolutely essential to finishing a project. If you don't have that sense of urgency, if it were just me, I could push it off a month or two. But I'll be letting down everyone who has to lay out the book. I'll be letting down, it pushes all these other hands out of sync to drop that ball. So now it's not a question of the story's good enough, or I'll just worry about it later. It's no, now's the time to fix it And so you take out the machete and you chop away the parts that don't work.
One is to study nature, one must become as remorseless as nature. You should know that.
Do you have like a plan of how you're going to do this?
Yeah, what do you mean?
Like usually if I'm like, I'll set aside a day. I'll like turn off my internet. I'll turn off my phone. I'll, take the dog for a long walk, have a fire, and just like, this is my task for today, and really delve into it. Like, do you make kind of a little situation for yourself to make it the most ideal experience? How are you going to tackle this?
So this will require some context. So I have enough experience now, some hard-won experience, that I can look at a larger draft and fairly accurately estimate how many hours of work, actual focused attention it will take to fix the problem or finish the story, get the words in. So I knew that I needed about 15 hours to get where I wanted, of like 100% doing nothing but just working on it. And so I set aside 3 hours every morning from 9 till noon all week this week to just do that. Got up a little earlier today so that we could meet our podcasting deadline, but did the same thing, had put my 3 hours in. And I'll do that all this week, and by the end of the 3 hours tomorrow, whatever shape the story is in, that's the shape I'm going to polish. And I'm not going to overwrite, rewrite, change. I'm going to just accept that in that time, this long, dark tea time of the soul is over now. Mm-hmm. And now it's just roll up your sleeves and start chiseling at what remains. Make it as polished as possible. And so in order to do that, I've been leaving the house. This is the other thing I do. So my friend Melanie, I ran into actually where I've been working, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Oh, I'm working on my new poetry manuscript." My desk is poison, she said. And I felt that so deeply, like I understood it. And it wasn't that my desk is poisonous right now, it's that it's filled with all these other things. I have a Midas Institute project I want to do, there's some film stuff we're working on, there's a bunch of cool, fun stuff that needs your attention. And I would very easily be able to justify to myself that attention. So instead, I disable my internet connection on my laptop, I take it somewhere, and I just work on the one thing I have to do in public. And I find that the public thing is nice because you're on display in a sense, like you're there to work, I'm going to drink a coffee or two, and I'm just going to lean into this.
It's harder to take breaks when you're in the middle of a crowded room. Yeah,
and you can't get up and go and do anything.
Right.
Like you're also, at least for me in that, you can't leave your stuff unattended, so you just got to stay with your stuff and just work. So,
okay.
And about 3 hours is about as long as I can work before physically I need to break. So
yeah, your mind kind of turns to mush by that point, right?
Yeah.
I find after 3 hours of painting, like I need to get up, walk around.
Yeah, 3 hours of art, 3 hours of writing, whatever it is.
Yeah,
that's too much. And so then I walk to where I'm going, get my thoughts in order, do those 3 hours, walk home from there. Come to the studio after that, and then that's been a real. To speak to your question of how are you planning?
Exactly what I was looking for. I know last time we saw Claire C. Marshall in Calgary, she was about to or had just finished. She booked a hotel room in her home city to do a writing sprint.
I've always wanted to do that. I'm so jealous. Yeah,
I've heard that's a pretty common thing. A lot of writers like to do that.
Yeah, and I used to think it was just the mythology of writing. So much of writing is romanticized, and you'd hear these stories of famous authors booking out a room in a hotel and then working on their draft, and hooray. And I always thought that was one of those things that happened away from us. And then Claire's like, "Hey, I just came back." Yeah, she was in the middle of doing it. She had just done.
And she's going to do it again, or she is doing it again right now. So it worked. It sounded like it worked, and so she's going to do it again.
I was jealous.
Yeah, it sounds pretty great.
It did sound pretty great. I wonder if it only sounds good to us because we don't have a healthy work-life balance.
Well, our work usually entails traveling to another city and staying in a hotel and doing a convention. So one of the rare stints that I'm home, taking off to go stay in a hotel somewhere, like it'd be a hard sell.
Right.
Yeah. to myself and significant others.
See ya, hon.
Yeah.
I'm off to finish my book.
Yeah.
So you try to work it around. Yeah. I have also been thinking about the structure of this story differently than I've approached other writing, because our shared world project is open to other collaborators. So one of the project parameters is that the 4 authors that have made the shared world are opening it up later, probably near the end of this year. It hasn't been set in stone, dear listener, but the overall plan is we put our shared world collection together, which is all 4 authors' stories all in one place. And then there's a Once Lands collection. There's the Kyber collection, which is Chadwick Ginther. Then there's going to be a Draxis collection, which is Jonathan Ball. And then the 4th book in the, I don't know what you call it, series. It's not really a series, but in the world, is going to be an open call for other people to contribute into those places. And so it's this knowledge that if I make places, if I make, it's all imaginary stuff, but if you're putting it all there on the map, how will someone else use it? Not what will they think of this, but how could it be used? And
that's where you're really inviting in that Mrs. Self-doubt when you're not thinking about, when you're just thinking about the project and making it as great as possible. Like, that's amazing. But as soon as you start to think about, like, how's this person going to perceive it, and how are they going to perceive it, and how is this group going to look at it, and like trying to look at it now from their eyes and what would be the best version for them, like trying to like see it from all those perspectives, I find that's when things start to fall apart for me, when I'm trying to please too many people other than the story itself.
So that writing schedule forces me to stop thinking about those other people, or there's still a little squirrel running in my head, but they are not while I'm working, but after. So the before and after is when I'm trying to manage all that stuff. So it's been it's been a week. And then on top of that, just organizing stuff in the studio and getting like all the practical parts of life organized.
But we don't go anywhere until July for Montreal.
Montreal
Icons
first. Before that?
No, Montreal first, and then Icon. So we have a little trip, and then we have a little local show.
That's right.
Big local show, let's be honest.
Yes.
It's a huge one.
Yeah.
It's probably the second biggest after Comic-Con, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Definitely within our demographic, our genre.
No, it's, I think, like, so the big anime shows in Canada are Icon, Anime-thon in Edmonton, Otaku-thon in Calgary, and Anime Revolution in Vancouver, and then Anime North in Toronto. And all those except for Anime North, the Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, and Winnipeg show are all like very similar in size, scope, attendance. It's weird. Like, I do all these shows and they're all like monetarily and enjoyment and people-wise, they're all like clones of each other in a weird way. It's almost like it's kind of comforting. Like,
this fan base exists in every city.
Yeah, and it's like the same shape and form in every city, other than Toronto is a little bit bigger.
Right.
But all those other ones, if you've done Icon, Anime-thon, Otaku-thon, Anime Revel, all going to feel like the same thing.
And the good things about those shows is this sense of community. There
is
they're
amazing.
There's everyone's in a good mood. The organizers are organized, not a universal experience with show running. And the overall attendance is interested in participating in not just like, the dealer's room or the vendors or the art, but there's programming and there's lots to do round the clock in and around the show that has nothing to do with like turning you upside down and taking your money.
Sorry, I misspoke. It's Otafest in Calgary, not Otaku-thon. That's another anime show in the States. I do too many shows. My brain is a little muddled. Otafest in Calgary. Amazing show. I love the organizers. I'm sorry I got your name wrong.
Someone is right now deleting the angry message they were about to send. So it's a good thing you caught that. Because one thing I've learned about the internet, Justin, is you cannot make a mistake as a human person anymore.
I think people are making mistakes deliberately sometimes. I saw an interesting video that was talking about, it's a little bit clickbaity, but I kind of fall into that sometimes. And it was like actors who quit acting at the peak of their career. And I was going through all these ones, and I started to realize that this is just a list of actors who don't act anymore, is what it became, because some of these actors quit well after the peak of their career. And then one of the people on the list was Gene Hackman. And the person they showed in the video was not Gene Hackman. It was clearly some other actor. And I'm like, but I think they did that on purpose, because when I went to the comments of it, every single comment said, that's not Gene Hackman.
People love saying you're wrong.
Yes, they love it. And so that's how the person was driving their engagement, by putting a fake picture.
You think that's on purpose?
I think it had to. It was not Gene. It was nobody I'd ever known. Like, how could you get Gene Hackman wrong?
That disgusts me.
I think so.
That disgusts me.
I think you're right. I think it's clickbait,
because then you comment, and then the comments drive.
That's right.
The algorithm,
works,
and
right?
then
so make one little thing on purpose, one little nitpicky. That's why I don't sweat the details too much when I put stuff on TikTok. I'm like, if I'm wrong, then somebody else will correct me, and I'm okay with that.
And you'll get more comments and engagement.
Yeah, there we go.
But to be wrong on purpose.
He who breaks the law shall be punished. Back to the house of pain. Back to the house of pain.
If we bring this back around to the notion that stories and legends and myths, right, they're not wrong on purpose. They've just been told in so many different ways that they don't fit together anymore. Mm-hmm. A great example of that in, I would say, well-known mythologies would be the labors of Hercules, right? You can learn about Hercules, the character, and think you knew it because you watched that Disney movie. But if you look at the labors of Hercules and you look at all the different translations of the labors of Hercules, the stories are different. Where he went, what's happening, all the constituent parts of those stories. And when you realize that these are not accurate accounts,
Did you really go bananas?
The real purpose of stories and myths is to impart genuine knowledge to the listener that is interesting because it's a legend, but contextually accurate to the teller of the time. So depending on which translation you're listening to or which version they are just means. They're just a medium to transmit other information.
I think they were just trying to sell scrolls. What are the most interesting story we can put on this scroll to move scrolls?
Oh my God. That's not Aphrodite. You did that on purpose. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, yeah. Drafts are scary. What about some stuff that you're happy with now? You're like, what is some work that you've got, Justin, that is done?
What am I excited about? I've been painting a lot lately. I've been not looking at the story of Spark Chasers, but working on individual elements. This is also a way I kind of partition the big brain thinking of the overall story and how's it all coming together and just like all that big picture stuff. It's a little overwhelming. So sometimes I like to just put that off to the side, and right now I'm working on a single environment. It's when the characters find an underground train that then becomes kind of their fast travel it's like a fake video game, right? So there's always a fast travel element in big RPGs, and this is my fast travel environment. You find a train and you can pick where on the tracks you're going to go. So the train has to have this big exterior design, and then the interior rooms where all the characters sleep, and there's a little kitchen, and then like the engineering part of the train itself. So while I'm doing that, I'm also feeding the poster part of my artistic brain and making a Ninja Turtles layer isometric map of all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles room and the big common room, and then levels of the sewer all the way going up to a street in New York where there's a pizza delivery guy looking for the address that he was supposed to bring a pizza to.
You've got two compositions happening in your head at the same time. I need a train station that's like a fantasy train station. Then I need a subway station that's a Ninja Turtles, and then the bones of those both kind of fit together.
It's like sewer and lots of pipes, and so like the elements of these two things is these pages from Spark Chasers and the Ninja Turtles underground lair. There's a lot of shared elements in there, right? There's a lot of pipes, there's a lot of stone, there's a lot of underground lighting. So I'm able to work on these pieces at the same time, and it brings me joy, and it kind of goes in two places at once. The train stuff, nobody's going to see that for a while, but this Turtles piece, I can have this done in time for the Montreal Comic-Con at the end of the month, the San Diego Comic-Con after that, and that also, when people like that piece, it segues into me talking about I did it in this style because I'm working on a book in this style, so it's like that part is feeding the book monster as well. So it's all tying together in this nice, fun way. So I'm really enjoying this isometric style that I'm drawing everything in, because it's feeding different parts of my business and all coming back together. And I think probably by the end of this project, I'm going to be so sick of isometric, but it hasn't happened yet.
How many of those big, like, overall illustrations have you done, like in different fandoms, right? You've done...
I think I've got I've got a big Mario piece, the Pokemon piece, Kingdom Hearts. Those are all isometric, and they're all being reused into the book. And so this Ninja Turtles is going to be another. These what Dan was referring to is these are extra big prints that come with these little find it sheets of all the little elements to find in there.
Like Where's Waldo for
kind
of thing. Yeah.
So like all the fun little quirky toys that you remember from the Ninja Turtle like toy line, I'm putting little references in this piece to it. There's going to be a little broken ooze canister somewhere. There's going to be, the turtle's blimp is going to be off in the sky in the distance. All these like little things to hide in there.
I think once you get enough of those, you can put those out as a book. Just a bunch of those.
So yeah, that's another plan. I was going to make a tutorial book on how to draw isometric and why I'm doing it this way and how I'm recycling elements and stuff from like my Kingdom Hearts piece, which has nothing to do with Ninja Turtles. I'm going to be able to steal elements from that and plop it in the Ninja Turtles world. And because they're in this similar style, it works. And so I'm able to reuse assets. So I'm really excited about that part of my career that's going on right now.
So isometric. This is the isometric portion. Sometimes people have a blue period in their art.
Yes.
Right? This is your isometric period.
Yeah.
Do you sense the edges of your discontentment with isometric? Or
Not yet. But yeah, that definitely has happened, like notable times in your career, you'll do a couple pictures and one will really take off. And for me, like one was big versus small. I have like a big monster on one side of the page and a little guy on the other side, and it looks like there's about to be a standoff, David and Goliath type compositions. And I love doing those, and people liked them as well, so I sold a bunch. But at a certain point, you kind of get sick of doing big versus small, and so you move on to something else. And that's not to say that I'll never do big versus small compositions anymore, but I'll do different types, different versions, different variations. And I think that's just your brain telling you we're kind of sick of this, we're going to evolve and become something a little bit different.
Right, because then you're just a technician instead of an innovator, right?
Yeah. Another reason why it's so great that like we're our own bosses, right, is we can make those decisions, whereas if I had somebody overseeing my artistic output, the big versus small is working, so that's all we're going to do. Why would we stop doing that until it stops making money? So just do more of that. But I got bored of it, so I moved on to something else. As long as you get bored
of it before your audience does, right?
Right, yeah.
That's a key feature. That's a key feature. Yeah, if you're going to be shackled to the necessities of capitalism, hopefully you get bored of it before the audience does. Yeah. So you can move on. For me, a similar piece there is in my portfolio a couple years ago, I had a Dracula piece, and people just really responded to it. I redid my version of the original Dracula book cover.
You did a whole bunch of classic monsters, but the Dracula in particular.
Well, it started with, I did Dracula and Frankenstein.
Yeah.
As sort of, I love these. They're so important to me. So I'm just going to tinker with this. And my Frankenstein is my image of the last page, in my mind, the last image of the book of Frankenstein's monster breathing out on the ice float and looking back and seeing the doctor and all this kind of stuff. And then the Dracula piece was a flight of fancy. It was that we always see the Bela Lugosi style Dracula, and we never see Dracula the prince, Dracula the monster, Dracula the force of nature, the devil, the creature at the distance. And so I just made this very simple, shadowy, it's almost like a Batman illustration, actually. It's just like the shadowy figure in the central square, and I angled the buildings. I was playing around with the notion of sight lines, and so I was just playing around with, can I angle the buildings to point exactly at the center of the composition? Can the composition be very simple? And I read this little factoid about the first edition of Dracula when it was printed. There's a drop case D. The D drops so that the rest of the word Dracula stretches out, but the D is oversized, and half of it is functionally below ground. Mm-hmm. But some booksellers thought that was a mistake, because the drop D was a drop case letter set up that way was rare and usually a mistake. And so booksellers thought that this was not a design choice, but an error in the printing, some booksellers at that time. And I just was so taken by this notion that such a clever idea that the D is partially below ground, like dead and buried in the overall graphic design. I thought that was so, like an exciting graphic design note.
Is that the first? Because I think that's been done a lot since then, hasn't it? Having that oversized letter at the beginning.
The oversized letter, yes, but the oversized letter then dropped so that the rest of the word. Anyway, it was in the 18th century. It was not a done thing.
No,
And I just liked that. Yeah, so that was the notion. My first time of saying, okay, I'm going to take the original title treatment and I'm going to include it on the poster. It's firmly in the public domain. I'm not stepping on anyone's trademark. I can just present it, and won't it be fun to tell my excited story about this drop D every time Dracula is looked at in the portfolio, whether anyone likes it. And instead, I found out how many people in their little Venn diagram of nerddom, Dracula or Frankenstein were so important to their journey into genre and speculative fiction. And because they're books that are lauded in schools and universities as great works of literature, you get to finally read a monster book and call it school.
He's a man like us. Like us. He must learn the law.
But then I found you people. I found the vampire. I found the vampire community. And I just kept doing these vampire compositions, and I've been having so much fun. But I'm feeling the edge of it now. Right? That's why I asked. It's like I'm feeling the edge of my interest in a vampire composition.
Just vampire, not Frankenstein?
Frankenstein, I don't have enough Frankensteins.
Okay.
No. And I recently did a Dr. Moreau that I'm very proud of, so I'm excited to have that out at the next shows. Now, the anime show won't be the one where that...
The Island of Dr. Monroe?
Island of Dr. Moreau, yeah. And then I also have a Jekyll and Hyde that I just finished, so I'm excited about both of those.
Monroe, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't think there'd be much of a fan base for that. Like,
well, the original novel there is, right?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. It's like H.G. Wells has got some weird stuff going on.
Yeah. It just makes you think of that terrible movie with Val Kilmer.
Yeah. Don't think of that.
No, there was another movie. There was a movie before that was actually pretty good. Yeah,
okay, I haven't seen the original.
Well, and here's the funny thing, right? Like Frankenstein, that people kind of got popularized by the movies, as far as the common culture is concerned. There isn't a good version of Frankenstein. There is not a single good Frankenstein movie, period, that is actually related to the source material. There are cool Frankenstein movies. The best Frankenstein on film is probably in Bride of Frankenstein. And all your memories of cool images of Frankenstein are not from the original Frankenstein movie, but they are from Bride of Frankenstein.
Robert De Niro.
No. You did that on purpose. You made that mistake on purpose.
So what you're doing is you're taking images from the written works.
I'm interpreting the written work.
This is your visualization of what you're seeing in the books of the page.
That's right.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah. No electrical bolts, for example, and a little bit of long hair. I will say this. I was too, as long as we're being honest about like where I was afraid that if I rendered Frankenstein as he is described exactly in the book, which is quite handsome, it wouldn't work as a print. So
people wouldn't understand who that is.
Yeah, they wouldn't understand who it was. So I had to make him as ugly as people expect him to be instead of how I imagine him to be.
Is like in the original, I know he has long hair. Does he actually have scars on his face?
There are some scarring, but he's described as handsome, long hair, thoughtful. He's articulate. The idea of Frankenstein as like,
like the, what was that Harvey Dent movie with, not Harvey Dent.
I know what you're thinking of.
Eckhart.
Aaron Eckhart, the bricklayer.
Oh, I think Frankenstein.
I didn't see that one.
No, I didn't.
That one. No.
Well, he's handsome in it, so I guess that's.
I'm not going to try to defend
I think there's an audience that would recognize what it was. If you made him handsome, there will be some people out there that would, hey, he's handsome, just like in the book. They'll recognize that, but not enough.
Hey, he's handsome, like the book. Which is funny because there are no pictures. Those are just in your head.
Right. But some people will see that, right? But not enough.
Okay, but coming around to your actual question to me, what's making you happy in your artistic career?
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's like exploring compositional challenges. Like, so I have these two brains, right? I've got the writer brain, which can sometimes get confused and frustrated.
He's so moody.
He's so moody that my writer brain is much moodier than my artist brain. There is no day where I've spent trying to create or crack a composition, good or bad, where I've ever felt angry after. Like, it didn't work. Cool. I still felt thrilled that I got to draw all day. There is no... A whole day of writing where it doesn't work feels way worse on my psyche than a whole day of drawing that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Because I'll eventually, because collage is so much a part of my process, I'll eventually cut some element out of what I spent the day working on and use it again. It's almost like storing that labor for something. So if I worked on a composition and I know the buildings are good but the figures are horrible, I'll use those buildings somewhere in something, you know? So... yeah, that's what's been making me happy. It's like, but it's the microdosing of accomplishment. I finished a Jekyll and Hyde. It only took a day or two. It took me like 2 months to figure out the composition in my sketchbook, where I was just, every time I came back around to it, no, that's no good, no, that's no good. And then the most obvious solution of...
It's in the potion bottle.
That's right. He's just looking through the potion. It's like, it's right there. It's actually not that clever. But it took me forever to get there. And that's when I was like, oh, okay, great. Now I can execute. And so thinking about a composition, that can haunt me in a very different way. Where
I think it just has to slow cook.
That's right. It's slow cooking more than a haunting. It's more like just like you say, it's like a slow cooker. And eventually, once it's ready, I can do it, and it'll only take me a day or two to pull it off.
Right.
With a novel, it's different. You're, digging that ditch the entire time. And sometimes it holds water and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we had... No, I don't wish. But I just imagined a metaphor count in our podcast where it goes ding every time we use a new metaphor.
I don't know. I feel like that's a job for AI.
Yeah.
That's not a job for me.
I like the one time I came in, a story is like a dark room and you have a flashlight and you're slowly... like finding out the shape of the room with the flashlight, and sometimes it's a small room that's cluttered, sometimes it's a really big room with tons of stuff, but you don't really know until you explore it. You have to slowly write about it, slowly figure it out piece by piece with your little flashlight. And sometimes the flashlight sometimes it's a little candle, and sometimes it's a 200 lumen tiny sun, and you immediately know what the story's all about.
Yeah. Ding! That's the metaphor.
Yeah, there we go.
Bell right there again.
So grow your trees.
Wrap it up. We're over time.
We're over time.
Be a squirrel. Grow a tree.
What?
He's wrapping up all the metaphors.
Like how many metaphors?
Yeah, collect your nuts. Okay, so, dear listener, we have made a tangled knot of many different metaphors. Mm-hmm. And we're actually using one right now as I describe the knot. So in this Gordian knot of tied up squirrels, you have to do as... is intended with a Gordian knot. You just cut through it. You take out your sword, as Alexander apparently did, and cut through the Gordian knot as quickly and as easily as possible. And these are the ways that I have found are useful when you're working on a draft to cut through all that.
Ways to sharpen your sword.
Ways, ding, metaphor bell. Have a set amount of time that you are planning to have complete focus. Set that time in imaginable amount every day. Don't binge it, so that you have some thinking time around it. Be worried around it. Execute during that time. Try to get into a rhythm. So like for me, even though I have a very weird schedule, I made sure that for 3 hours every morning at the same time, I was doing this task so I could get into the rhythm and remember what I was doing last time. Psychologists call that mood congruency. I call it, if I don't have a schedule, I won't do it. The other thing you should do is listen to your collaborators. If someone has pointed out that something's wrong with the story, it is. The solution is probably different than they suggested, but there is probably something to fix. And the last thing that I do is usually push all those emotions into a tiny place inside and never share them. So I've tried something different this time with sharing it with all of you. This has been Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I'm GMB Kamichek, encouraging you to join the fight and make comics. encouraging you to join the fight and mix metaphors.